Hello folks, it's me, back again for another video to round off your week. If you like what I do, then please like the video or subscribe to the channel. Do what you want, but if you do either of those two things, it's 1 second of work for you, but it means a lot to me. It helps the channel grow in the algorithm. It means that more people can see Hobby Nightmares and get something out of them, because I truly believe that what we do here celebrates the hobby and makes sure that people who are out there who maybe feel a bit on their own don't feel so alone when they're in the hobby with us, right? Discord is also down below. It is free. You don't need to pay for it. Again, I'm getting emails saying, do I need to pay to get into the Discord? No, you don't. You don't need to be on my Patreon, although I would appreciate it. And you don't need to be a channel member, although I would appreciate it. You just need to go down and follow the link and you'll be on the Discord, alright? Cool. Awesome. Let's jump in, shall we? With Gallifrey, who I think has commented on a few videos. I can't remember whether he's been a good boy or a bad boy in the comments, but we'll see. He says, "Greetings North, you may call me Gallifrey." Obviously, you are a Doctor Who fan. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I hope you get the therapy you need. I've been listening to your channel for the better part of a year now, and I thought it was time to submit one of the first and worst times I interacted with the Warhammer community. A little bit about myself first. To give some groundwork for the tale that I shall tell, I was raised in a very large household with a father who was a massive Tolkien fan. Being homeschooled until my early teens, then dropped into private schools after that was a recipe for a socially awkward young man, to say the least. Unable and unwilling to get into sports, which was heavily pushed at this private school, I instead retreated into my father's rather large private library. There I found more Tolkien, as well as Jules Verne, Robert E. Howard, good man, Dante, and Shakespeare. I fell in love with reading, and was happy ignoring the rest of the world in favour of the worlds I found within my dad's books. Fast forward, and I was out on my own, living with an ex-girlfriend on the East Coast. Her brother introduced me to a thing called Warhammer, which I found incredibly daft, as you lot across the pond like to say. Orcs in space is dumb, and would never work. Oh, how naive and wrong I was. Yes. Yes. They're the best part, man. They're the best part. I reached out to my dad and asked him if he had any Warhammer books. He informed me that he'd never really gotten into it, but one of my uncles had some Warhammer Fantasy models. I began watching Arch Warhammer and a few others, viewing Warhammer Fantasy as the safer of the two. Little did I know, it would be my gateway drug to a world of Grey Knights and Death Guard. Ooh, okay, alright, that's cool. Man of culture, at least half. Another fast forward, and I'm currently married to my wife of 3 years, and we have been going through our budget. We agreed to get an Audible subscription, as we are both avid readers. At our last count, we have over 2,500 books in our small apartment, and no plans to stop there. Dude, there's nothing more comfortable than walking into somebody's apartment and seeing loads of books. I love it. It absolutely, it makes me just giddy. Just to say, oh, what are they into? You know, right? What have they been learning? It's like a snapshot of who they are. I love it. And if it's all fantasy books, you're thinking, wow, this guy's going to be fun to talk to. Do you know what I mean? Awesome stuff. Let me take a sip of tea. It's one of my ambitions for my new place to actually have a bookshelf behind me when I do videos. If I ever do like a face video where I'm talking to you guys as a talking head. Because I have some banger fantasy series and historical books, man. Anyway, moving on. With Audible, you get 2 free books a month. No, you don't, you get 1. I had been consuming Arch, Wes Hammer, and several others on a nearly daily basis, and I'd finally decided to bite the proverbial bullet. I wonder if, like, Arch and Wes Hammer, because I know one of those two watches these videos sometimes, I wonder if they ever get a shout out and go, "Oh, it's me!" I looked up a time, not that they would, I'm much more than them, but it's still funny. I looked up a timeline and began reading/listening to the 40k books in chronological order. A unique, and to some, a stupid way to go through the books, yes it is, but my OCD would have it no other way. I read the Silmarillion at age 11 before The Hobbit because it was the first. I like timelines and going in order. You and Tolkien would get on. I also decided to join a few Discord groups to get a feel for the community. Unfortunately, just 3 or 4 months after this, the FEMSTODIES debacle happened. Now, I am not the biggest Warhammer fan, but after several years of consuming lore videos and reading wiki entries, not to mention with several of the books now under my belt, I felt I had a small stake in this change. So, naive guardsman that I was, I walked straight into the warp of Discord with no Gellerfield on to make my thoughts known. Oh no. Oh no. I have included my thoughts on the FEMSTODIES here as I feel that they are relevant to the story. Whenever a lore change happens to a fandom I love, I ask myself if it is true to the original spirit of what it is changing. Does it keep the same ideals and values of the original? With FEMSTODIES being added to the ranks of the Custodies, I thought it was changing the original idea of the faction, as well as the way it was changed being incredibly disrespectful to the fans, and the people that were claiming to represent. Imagine being a woman and Games Workshop saying, you were always represented in this faction, you were just too stupid to notice. I agree. That is one of my many issues with the change that they made, and as far as I'm concerned, in my own headcanon, it was never made. So, there you go. Doesn't count. Moving on. I would say take a sip of tea here, but being an American, I'm honoured to throw any tea I find directly in the nearest harbour, fair enough. After posting my thoughts in Discord, I was immediately blasted by several direct messages, all of which were absolutely despicable and disgusting. Accusations of bigotry were expected, but what I did not expect was for people to tell me to end myself. I was honestly taken quite aback. Was this the community that I had really joined? I felt like the Inquisitors were after me or something. I took a step back and had to realise that these were just a small group of insane people who believed you must agree with them on everything, and one step out of line, one point where you disagreed, and you became the enemy. Joining your community showed me that there are still people out there who can disagree and be friends. That is true, that is true. We sometimes run into a few issues on the Discord with people going in a political direction that we don't want them to go, because we don't do politics on the Discord, but yeah. I feel like critical thinking and realising that most topics have a certain amount of nuance and lost skills are in fact lost skills. Thank you very much for being the architect of this community of people who can sit down rationally, discuss various viewpoints and still get along. I still enjoy 40k and have now finished a good many of the novels. Currently, I am halfway through the Horus Heresy arc and it is quite gripping. Much respect from the colonies. I remain your avid listener, Gallifrey. Cheers, man. Postscript. Thanks to you, I'm over 5,000 words into my first novel. I've been working on the setting since I was 16 and would love some input from you. Good man. If I've got time, I will read it, but one of the parts of my job, dude, is editing books. So, essentially what you're asking me to do there, not that you know that you're doing that, but what you're asking me to do there is give you what I do for a living for free. Because, yeah, again, like, my mum asked me the other day, what do you do? Like, what is your job? And I had to say, I'm a professional North. I used my real name, but I said, no, I'm a professional North. And she said, what do you mean? I said, well, when I got out of teaching, I went into private teaching, right? I teach in universities, and I teach at seminars, and I do online courses for people, and I earn my money that way. And she said, yeah, so you're an educator. And I said, no, because I also do YouTube, and I also edit professional books, and historical books, and fantasy books on the side for pocket money, and all that gloms in together as the business of North. That's just what I do, right? She was like, so you're basically a North. I said, yes, that's what I do. I'm a North. I'm not an educator. Well, I guess I am, but like I do a lot of other things too. Because if one gig goes south, it's always better to have a few other things that you can turn to. Do you know what I mean? Always branch out, dudes. Don't ever do anything for free if you're good at it. Being serious. So feel free to send it to me, but I may not get to it for a while, mate. I'm not going to charge you for it, obviously. But I may not get to it for a while because, you know, I've got all the paid gigs to do. Anyway. Jay says, greetings, Sage of the North. You can call me Jay. Well, I will. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. This is my second entry into... This is my second entry to the hobby, and I can't say that it has spawned any nightmares, but after listening to you as I paint for about a year, I thought my story might at least be worth sharing. There are no Jensens or Daves present in this narrative. Please rehydrate as needed. I love these stories, especially for Friday, it's brilliant. My first experience with Warhammer 40k came from the 1993 PC version of Space Hulk. It completely took over my friend group. Eventually, I spied the 2nd edition starter box at my local gaming shop in the northeastern US. I had seen Warhammer in the Dragon magazine, but I was a little disenchanted when I pulled those sprues from the box. I didn't really have much interest in building and painting the models, as I asked my friends to prepare them for me. I regret this tremendously. I remember supplementing them with a few Grey Knights, the old Rogue Trader sculpts, and one of my friends explained to me that every member of this chapter was a psyker. Before I fully immersed myself in the game, and eventually maybe the hobby, though, I had to move. My parents felt that my grades weren't worthy of continuing my education, so as they moved, I moved along with them. Okay, well, I think what you mean there is they're going to take you to another school, right? You weren't doing well enough in that school for them to just stop everything and stay there. You could go to another school. But the nearest hobby or game shop I could relocate to was a city an hour away. These were the early days of dial-up internet, so I didn't know how to connect with anybody there, so my sprouting interest in 40k was quashed. This was 30 years ago. Yeah, kids today, I'm sorry for saying it this way, dudes, but kids today have no idea what it used to be like. How, you know, this guy's whole hobby just tanked because he moved house. That's it, done. He doesn't have the internet and he's not old enough to have a phone of his own. And by the way, he probably doesn't have a phone of his own. Because phones back then were clunky things, right? Even mobile phones. I remember my old BT Cellnet one. It was huge. You know, but I thought it was really small. But yeah. That's where we are. That's where we are, I suppose. In life. In the spring of 2023, though, the hobby struck. I was in a new city, and I was a single father, recently separated from my wife. Sorry to hear that. I'd caught an interest in Warhammer Fantasy from the Total War Warhammer games, and a new co-worker had multiple 40k armies, Thousand Sons, Custodies, and Dark Angels. One day, I found a box in my seat at work, full of paints and brushes. My friend told me these were supplies he didn't need any longer, so he was gifting them to me. I supposed I was taking the plunge. I combed YouTube to determine which army I should start with, and one faction leapt out at me, the Grey Knights. I remembered the models I had lost over the years, and ordered the combat patrol. Mwah! Chef's kiss. What a Chad. What an absolute man of culture. You must walk around your house in a smoking jacket all day just because you can. Because that, my friends, is what us Grey Knight players are allowed to do. As is our right and privilege as people who are, you know, the most special Space Marines in the universe. I built the models and found I enjoyed it. Then I got them printed and began to paint, and my love for the hobby just clicked into place. My first model, a librarian, was nowhere near as bad as I expected. Then I started into the Terminators in the box. Then the regular Grey Knights, and finally, the baby carrier, the Nemesis Dread Knight, and I was faced with the fact that I was coming to the end of the box. So I began to buy lots of Grey Knights to strip and repaint. I'm attaching a couple of photos of some of my favourites. Well, well, well. Well, well, when somebody sends in some Grey Knights, it would be a sin, an actual sin, to not look at them. Let's look at Brother Captain Stern first, shall we? Oh my days, that's really good. That's really good. I mean, you can tell how the older models, right, you know what I mean? Like the Primaris models just shit all over this, don't they? It's really annoying. Hopefully we get Primaris Grey Knight soon, but that's really well painted, dude. I really like it. Very, very well done to you. What do we have? What else do we have? A Justicar. Okay, yeah, yeah. See, the old models are, again, they're not easy to make look good, are they? They're just not easy. Here is a new Castellan Crow. Now we'll see what you can do, right? Now we will see what kind of a painter you are. Dude, you're a fucking great painter. You're a great painter. Can you see the difference? You know when people tell you that the new models don't have a patch on the old ones? This is when they're talking bullshit. Look at this. This is the same painter. Look at what he can do with one model versus another model. Right? dude, you are a great painter. Well done to you. Well done to you. I can see you're going to get better as well, because there are a few things here and there that you could improve on, but that is a brilliant model. Well done to you, sir. Well done. Right, let me go back to the thing here. I bought the Leviathan box when it came out and occupied myself with that. I began to try to push myself a little to improve, and found that some things were no longer as intimidating as they were when I first started. I managed to find time for a small 500-point teaching game at my local shop. As we were packing up after the game, one of the employees heard me mention my Grey Knights. I had brought the Space Marines from Leviathan for this game, and he asked me if I wanted to see something. He produced a box of models that was sold by one of the guys that worked at the store. Grey Knights, all metal sculpts. The seller wanted $100 for all of them. I told myself I wasn't really interested, but they dwelt in my mind, so I went back and asked if I could take them out and tally them. The box came to 49 models, 17 Terminators, 30 regular Grey Knights, Brother Captain Stern of the Third Brotherhood, and even a metal Venerable Dreadnought. I concluded that I'd been insane not to purchase them, so I did. I painted about 2/3 of them now, and last weekend finally managed to put together 1,000 points worth onto a table, including Castellan Crow, a recently finished gift from my daughter for my birthday. Those are the best ones, man. Those are the best ones. The hobby is now my favourite way to close out a day. It makes everything disappear except the model and the brush. I know there wasn't really a hobby nightmare in here. Everybody I've met surrounding the hobby has been great. And if you don't read this, it's totally fine. Cheers, Jay. No, I had to, man. I had to. It's such a good one. I had to jump in there and read it out. So there we are. I'm going to leave your crow up, by the way. Because, you know, it's a cool model. And I like it. Derek the Jobber says, "Greetings, most northerly of kings. Hello. It is I, Derek, and I would like to recall a time at Games Workshop when I was privy to quite an exciting scene involving our manager." Okay. Dale. Alright, cool. One sec. Let me take a sip of tea before I carry on. There we go. Lovely old sip of tea. You got all of it. Hopefully that they put an ad in there somewhere. Did they or did they not? Let me know in the comment section down below. I love it when I can make YouTube do things. So, Dale had his moments as a manager. The store would pretty much run without much supervision under the manager before Dale, but when Dale took over, he seemed to throw himself into so many events and campaigns, which I loved. He would do this for about a year before heading for his first few company retreats, where apparently they did training for retail managers. Ah, that's where the fun ends, I'm guessing. At this point, the store was going great, and he had picked up a lot of momentum. When he came back from the retreats, though, it was like he had been replaced by a different person. Here we go. Here we go. This is what they do. Listen, you start as a manager, and you come in with all these bright ideas, and you start doing well, and then they come in and they go, nah, scrap all that. You're doing it wrong. What you need to be is miserable. And you need to make everybody around you miserable too, and that way you'll sell more models. Alright, mate, cool. Do that or we'll sack you. Bye. That's what they do. That's not really what they do, but you know what I mean? It seems that way sometimes, especially when I was there. Jesus. It is so hard to describe, but there was just a light behind his eyes that used to be there that was now gone whenever you spoke to him. It might sound odd, but it was like he went to this retreat, drank the Kool-Aid, was beaten down, and sent back packing to his store with a warning or something. He looked really defeated, and was very short on patience as he wound down the campaigns and events, letting people down gently that the events would be much smaller in scale, and, as he went towards Christmas, he stopped them altogether. The gaming table was shortened to a very small 4x4 board that was for advanced beginners, quote-unquote, to learn the rules after they have had their first intro game at the small intro table near the door. Basically, what he started to do was get a new person into the store, get them onto the small intro table, get them into the hobby, and then tell them, when they bought their starter set, that they could come back at any time and play on the larger 4x4 table with him, or a trusted veteran, to learn the rules. Ah, okay. So what he's done here, for those of you who don't know, he's put in a conveyor belt into his store. A conveyor belt is basically, you know, it is what it says on the tin. You take somebody who starts in the hobby, and they start in at the door of your hobby shop. They come to the intro table, they have a really fun game with you, they go over to buy their first models, they do a painting session with you, and then they go home. Sorry, I'm going to take another sip of tea here, because I've got a really dry throat. There we go. And then they go home, right? And they do their models, they have some fun with them, and they come back and say, I'm ready for a game. And then you take them to your advanced beginners table, and wow, there you go. You got yourself a hobbyist. You've retained somebody into the hobby, which is your job as a Games Workshop manager, I suppose. So there was gaming in the store, but only for beginners and those willing to help them out. Dale eventually confided in us that he had been given a royal talking to at the retreat about running games in his store when he brought it up, and was told, and I quote, either find a way to make it friendly for recruitment or get rid of it. We will be watching to see how you progress, unquote. How lovely. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine loving this company from the day you were 5? And then going in there and getting talked to you like this? Do you know what I mean? I think with this system, he actually did so. He cut out the time vampires, as you like to call them, and more competitive players who wanted bigger tables and kept the older, more chill and happy to teach crowd in the store. Yeah, for those of you who don't know what a time vampire is essentially somebody who comes into your Warhammer store or your Games Workshop or whatever it is that you're running, right? And they never buy anything, but they seem to take up all of your time. They want to talk about lore, they want to talk about models, they want to talk about life, the universe and everything, but they never actually buy anything. If you've ever bought anything from a Games Workshop and you like to talk a lot, you're not a time vampire, right? But they are common. They are common. Normally they don't have jobs and they don't have money anyway, and that's why they don't buy anything. Anyway. Whilst business was down, thanks to no tournaments or events happening in the store anymore, he was still up over what he had taken over from in the past. The phone calls started, though, from HQ, asking why he was not meeting targets and beating his previous months. Dale made the mistake, in front of us regulars on a quiet Wednesday, of telling them, Games Workshop, over a call, that sales were down because they told him to get rid of the things that were making him money, the events, and that his store was still doing well regardless when compared to previous years and managers. He was then told to walk somewhere private, I think, as he left and probably got a real bollocking. That's kind of like, do you know when you're with company and your missus is just talking shit, right? They're just talking shit. And you love her to pieces, but like, you just say something to her that's just such a zinger that it's just incredible, and like everybody laughs, right? And she gives you a look like, you know, we're gonna fucking talk about this later, you know what I mean? And then you do, and it's all fine, and everything's cool. But you know, that's the kind of thing that Games Workshop have done to him. It's like, right, we're gonna have a little word over here, please, you know, away from everybody else. Anyway, Dale's worst day came a little later during Christmas, when he was on a stepladder putting up a display near the window. I was actually the veteran at this point, giving an advanced intro game of 750 points against a new girl by the name of Necron Lisa. A nice girl who had picked up her first aforementioned Necron force, undercoated them, inked them, dry brushed them, and then brought them in. We were well into turn 3. This really turned me onto smaller games, because they are much easier to figure out and to have fun in, and you end one every other hour. When we heard a shocked gasp from our left. Dale had missed his step coming down the ladder from the top, and came crashing, flying from the stepladder, and smashed backwards through the entire board with a crash. Lisa screamed and stepped back. Both the store Space Marine army I was using and Lisa's army were annihilated by the falling body. Dale, much to his credit, got up and dusted himself off and gave Lisa a hug to calm her down as her models were smashed and she didn't really have the money to replace them. Oh, shit, man. Oh, that's fucking horrible, man. That turned like a really comedic moment into like a... Oh. He just said, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. You know what? Fuck it. Come over here. He led her over to the Necron models on the shelves and asked her what she had in her small army. He picked those models and put them aside. Then got a ghost keel, 2 boxes of wraiths and 2 boxes of Necron warriors, and put them aside too with the models he'd already picked out for her. He asked Lisa what paint she would need beyond the basics, and they picked 10 of them out. She told him she couldn't afford all of this, and he shook his head, walked over to the models and paints, and swiped them all off the table onto the floor. He then said, and I quote, "Oh no, look, they are broken," he said. "I guess I'll have to known-loss them and put them by your bag. It would be a real strain on my back if I had to take them all the way to the bin out back later. Anyway," I like this guy. I like this guy. All right, yeah, you know, this guy's all right. We like Dale. We like Dale. The store was near empty at this point. He winked at her, placed all the stuff next to her bag, and then looked at the mess he'd made of the table. It was already 5:45 PM, and he closed at 6. "You know what? Fuck it," he said. "I'm in early tomorrow anyway. I'll clear it all away then. Fancy a pint?" He looked at me. I said sure. He did his banking. Lisa left with what was left of her army and her new stuff, looking really happy and chipper as she practically skipped her way down to her train. I actually did the bulk of the tidying whilst he was banking up. He told me I didn't have to, but thanked me when I told him that I insisted. Well, you're a good lad as well. A good turn deserves a good turn. I've always thought that. I moved away a few months later for uni. I was 27 and a mature student, but I've stayed in touch with Dale. He, unsurprisingly, is not with Games Workshop these days. He runs his own IT consultancy firm and is doing very well for himself. He looks like he still looks at working for Games Workshop like looking back at a cringe ex-girlfriend, or so he says. Thank you for all you do, North. It means a lot. Derek. Cheers, man. And that was awesome. I love that. Loved that from start to finish. That was great. You know, it is cool when we have some of these hobby nightmares where the Games Workshop manager is actually the hero of the story. I like that one. That is cool. That's cool. If anyone has any more of them, do you have any more stories about good Games Workshop managers? Send them in. I'd love to read them out. I'd love to read them out. Anyway, I love you all a long time. I will speak to you on Sunday where we'll be doing some more hobby showcases. So send in your models to hobbynightmares@gmail.com so I can look over them on Sunday. And we'll do a general Q&A as we do every single week, and we'll have a little chat and have a little game, and it'll be fun, right? I'll see you on Sunday. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you then. Have a good one. Bye now.